Blessed TV wishes to inform you that the information shared on this program is not intended to replace the advice of your medical practitioner or for use in the diagnosis or treatment of any illness or disease. We strongly advise that you consult with your doctor before commencing or terminating any treatment protocol. The COVID-19 pandemic has rehashed one of the old-time discussions of conventional versus alternative medicine. Of course, on both sides of the divide, there has been conversation and arguments for and against both. Today, we will be taking an insightful look on the myths and how these myths actually are debunked in relation to both conventional and alternative medicine. Welcome to Bless TV's Med Talk. Today we have with us Dr. Michelle Hamilton. Welcome, Dr. Hamilton.
Thank you for having me, Pastor O.
And we also have Mrs. Desiree Giles Lynch.
That's
Welcome.
right. Thank you so much for having me.
Now, Dr. Hamilton is a medical doctor, very well known. You hear her on NCU 91.1, 91.3, 91.5 FM with Arnold Kelly, doing health tips there. And you also have her on the East Jamaica Conference virtual platform, where she actually goes through a number of medical programs with us. And we also have Dr. Lynch, who is a pharmaceutical scientist and a lecturer at the University of Technology. So today we'll be having the conversation with them in respect to conventional and alternative medicinal practice. Dr. Hamilton, I'm going to start with the elephant in the room.
Okay.
In Jamaica, we hear about bush doctor, and many individuals grow up having the conversation with their parents about how their grandparents had actually used this bush, put together this kind of concoction or recipe to actually heal and to help them in their healthy living practices.
Yes.
Is alternative medicine a viable choice for individuals?
Alternative medicine has a rich history and it is always a viable choice. It was the first medicine that we have on earth that was given to us. So it is always a viable choice. How we actually use it and the knowledge we have is what makes the difference.
So let's go. Let's go through how we use it. Is it that perhaps the way in which we were growing up, or some of us were growing up to interface with and to utilize alternative medicine, is not the correct way of doing it?
So going back to probably our great-grandparents, their health and their lifestyle was much, much different. So back then, their foods played the most important part. And when they did get ill for some reason, the home remedies is what would be used at that time. Now what we're seeing are unhealthy habits in general, and then persons now try to use these home remedies to solve the problem. And hence, it does not work and it is not the safest way in terms of using alternative medicine.
That's a powerful distinction that you're making, because you're saying even if you utilize something that is good, if the lifestyle change is not coordinating with that, the impact will be lessened.
Yes, definitely be less, or you could do more harm.
Give us an example, Dr. Hamilton.
So, for example, leading lifestyle diseases in Jamaica, hypertension and diabetes. Persons will be on medication or decide they don't want to take medication. They're not changing their risk factors or the things that they have in terms of their diets, a part of their diets, to make that change. Because some of them, it's really just the foods that they're really eating, just a simple method. They're not doing that, but however, they would, for example, find a particular herb and decide that they want to take it when they take it. It will reduce either the blood pressure or bring down their blood sugar. So they will consistently use that and not change the factors that are actually influencing the condition itself. Now, this is what still happens. If it's high blood pressure, your blood pressure is still surging. It's still causing damages in the walls of the arteries or the blood vessels, so to speak. If it's high blood sugar, you're still having the spike. So the damage is still occurring because whatever herb they're using is not helping to resolve the problem, because the influences or the things that they're doing to increase the risk factor still occurs. So at the end of the day, the damages still occur. They can lead them to cardiovascular disease. kidney failure, all of that just the same. Plus, they also run the increased risk of having an event, whether it is the kidney pretty much gets damaged or they end up in a coma or have a stroke, whatever it is, the risks are still there because they don't know how to actually use it in that sense. Because it takes more than just using the herb itself and expecting it to just work one time and that's it. It doesn't, because they don't know how to monitor it either.
Very interesting, and I think this program is going to actually help individuals to be able to balance both sides of the equation with your insights. Dr. Lynch, walk with us and let us know what persons might be thinking on the opposite side of Dr. Hamilton, that this area of alternative medicine is not recognized. Is that so?
First of all, thank you so much for the compliment. I'm not doctor yet, but I'm getting there, right? So it is not recognized. That's a fact to some degree, right? In terms of the fact that some remedies that are used are not considered official drugs. Now, what are official drugs? Official drugs are pretty much those that are not, enough research has not been done. So it's not that research hasn't been done, it's not that the medical community doesn't acknowledge them and the fact that they can work, but it needs to go a little bit deeper. You know, you need to know all the potential side effects of these, right? And contrary to popular belief, it's not just conventional medication that has side effects. Even the bush remedies or the herbal remedies have side effects too. So we have to know the proper dosage. We have to know how to properly administer these drugs in order for them to be as effective as they could be. So that is what would make, once the proper research would have been done, that is what would make it an official drug. So you have a lot of unofficial drugs that are there. Frankly, I can't think of a herbal remedy right now, or we call them crude drugs that has not been researched to some degree. So it is there, you know, and we in the scientific community, we do, you know, spend time and resources trying to find these remedies. Frankly, I saw a statistic the other recently where it says that in the last 30 years, about 50% of all new drugs are based on natural sources, right? Mm-hmm. And so it's not that it's not being used, it's just how, and it is not that it's not recognized or respected. It is just that more information needs to be developed or investigated.
If I hear you correctly, I hear you saying that there is a standard, a scientific standard.
That's right.
That all drugs have to be,
that is it.
well, I don't think I like even the word drugs. All remedies would have to go through, but for you it's a drug, yes, so I'll use that. All drugs would have to go through to ensure that it is not only applicable in one instance or to two persons, but on a wide scale.
That's it.
And you're saying that some of these remedies have not yet reached the standard.
Yes.
Which does not mean that they are not capable of being used.
Yes, but we have to be very careful.
Correct, yes.
In how we use it, and I'm sure we'll touch on that a little bit later.
We will. In terms of regulation, though, is it that conventional medicine and alternative medicine, one is regulated and the other is not? Is there a protective body for individuals who are engaged in alternative medical practice?
Definitely. And when we speak about alternative medical practices, we usually say CAM, which is complementary and alternative medicine. That's it. Thank you so much, Doc. So it's not just naturopathic medicine or nutrition-based, but it has many different avenues. Frankly, it is considered a holistic approach, right? So it involves the mind, it involves the physiology of the body, it involves herbal remedies, it involves all of these things, right? So I am sure she can better talk to the specific group that deals with in terms of regulating it. However, I can say that as it relates to an official drug, right? It has to be, I mentioned that earlier, it has to be researched and documented in what we call the pharmacopoeias and other pharmaceutical references, and in order for it to be documented in those references, it would have to have undergone extensive toxicological, clinical trials. All of these things would have to be done on a very wide scale in order for it to be considered there. So
Well, you're
it's not
speaking.
just what we would use, for example, on a local scale, or
In an individual case.
on an individual basis.
Understood.
All of those things.
Dr. Hamilton, which is exactly why some individuals had a problem with the vaccine that was generated as a response to the COVID-19 pandemic. So the very thing, I'm going to call her Dr. Lynch, the very thing Dr. Lynch has put forward has been a widespread feeling of the population, especially here in Jamaica. Properly placed or not?
I believe so. The concern was significant, and it's not just in Jamaica, it's worldwide. Everyone questioned why they were able to approve it so fast. And then looking at the process itself, and even though the tests were done, and even though the technology would have been researched many, many years, I think from as early as in the 80s that they started working on that particular method, the public was not aware of it, that was one. And two, it wasn't necessarily tested long enough for them to feel comfortable with it. And then within the pandemic itself, now giving persons as that's your only option, and within a year we are not seeing the benefits of what we're expecting when persons are being reinfected has become a problem. But going back to the question that you asked in terms of the monitoring or regulation for alternative medicine versus conventional, and also drugs itself and that process, it's important for us to know that the medical community has recognized that yes, there's a lot more research that can be done as it relates to herbal medicines. However, the documentation, just like the pharmacopoeia, we do have that. That has always been existing. It's called monographs. Those are available. The monographs has all the research herbs over the world that pretty much has the toxicology study, the side effects, everything that's there. That is the system that is used, as well as with the pharmacopoeia when we study. So specifically, I'm trained as a medical doctor, but specifically as a naturopathic medical doctor. So I'm trained to use both medicine. And in doing so, the herbal medicines, we use the monograph. So all of the tests are there for us. The main difference in terms of it's not going to be ever be called a drug, right?
Yeah.
But it's called medicine.
What is an A drug?
Sorry?
What's an A drug?
So when she says an A drug, pretty much it's the components used in both natural. So some of the drugs that we have natural components of herbs or plants in them, but pretty much that chemical makeup in itself that is used to create a drug that we use to treat or to alter the body for medications or for illnesses, so to speak. Unlike when we talk about the medicine in terms of herbs itself, it's the natural herb and the constituents of it that is used for medicine. So there's no physical changes in it structurally where we add anything synthetic to create a medicine or a drug. So you would not refer to herbs as a drug in itself. Now, as going back to the point where I say that the tests are there, the research, the science is there, the main difference is that you cannot patent a herb versus a drug. So the difference, really the bottom line is the money. Whilst you can come up with a drug and you pretty much get a patent for that to manufacture it and sell it and make all of that, you cannot do it with a particular herb. You won't be able to make that amount of money in that sense, and that is where the problem lies. But the research and the data is there.
So walk us through the difference between
The pharmacopoeia.
pharmacopoeia and the monographs.
Herbal. So you want to do the pharmacopoeia?
Well, as I previously mentioned, it's really, I think the difference is from my end, from what I can see, because I am aware of the monographs. It is pretty much the extent to which some of these tests are done. and probably the amount of time.
So pharmacopoeia, what I'm trying to understand is
It's a
pharmacopoeia a
reference.
system that
It's a
is put in
reference.
place that you can draw from easily to find out whether or not a drug that is listed as that has been tested and proved and tried?
Yes, and they would have the physical chemical properties. They would have
Okay.
possible interactions. They would have all of that information that can be used to formulate other drugs. So you don't always have to come up with things from scratch. They would have that information
So
in
that's
order
why when we
that
go,
is tested.
so that's why when we go to the pharmacy, for example, and the doctor prescribes one type of medicine, the pharmacist can say we don't have that, but we have a similar one. No, that's
Not necessarily.
not necessarily.
Yes, it depends on what you're referring to.
Okay.
Because they don't necessarily use, in the pharmacy, they don't necessarily use the pharmacopoeia. The pharmacopoeias is really for research, which is my
okay.
area. They use the Martindale, which is similar. It's a very good reference as well in the pharmacy world. They use the
Okay.
Martindale, but it would have more relevant information for them for over-the-counter dispensing.
All right, so that's the pharmacopoeia. What about the
Herbal monographs.
yes, the monographs?
Right, so pretty much it will have the constituents of a herb. So the test will be done on the herb it actual self. So you'd find out all the necessary constituents, the parts of the plant that can be used as medicine, how the toxicology of it as well, the side effects, all of that is there. Pretty much.
Including the weed?
Including
Marijuana?
marijuana. Including
course.
marijuana. Every plant there is.
Yes.
Even some Jamaican plants now are being added to the monograph as they are being studied. So they are tested, and we have the monographs that
So you
can
will
use as a guide.
So in other words, the pharmacopoeia and the monographs, what they actually aid us to do is to help us to understand the components in each of the various either drugs or herbs.
herbs, right.
Okay, so you see we're learning and we're growing. We're here, we're having mid-talk with Dr. Michelle Hamilton and of course Dr. Desiree, well not doctor, but I'm gonna put it on her, Mrs. Desiree
prophecy.
Giles Lynch, and we're looking on conventional and alternative medicinal practice. When we come back on the other side of this break, we're gonna go a little bit deeper. What are some of the results? What are some of the myths surrounding both conventional and alternative medicine, and how it is that you and I can be able to be better practitioners? In the Bible, the scriptures, Christ has said that indeed he has come to seek and to save that which is lost. I submit to you that the seeking and saving is not just the salvation of our souls, but also ensuring that we are living a life, according to John 10, that is abundant. When we come back on the other side, we'll hear from our guests in relation to the myths and other results from medicine, alternatively and conventionally.
Ever crave a juicy steak or tender serving of filet mignon? Well, you may be better off craving something other than red meat.
A team of researchers at Loma Linda University Health have been investigating lifestyle and health for nearly 60 years in what's known as the Adventist Health Studies. What they've found is those who eat a vegetarian diet have a lower risk for chronic diseases, which ultimately translates into longer, healthier living.
In our study, the vegetarians compared to the non-vegetarians do have a lower risk of chronic disease, a lower risk of high blood pressure, a lower risk of high cholesterol, a lower risk of diabetes, they're less obese, and a lower risk of dying from heart disease ultimately.
The researchers recently discovered that vegetarians are 22% less likely to develop colorectal cancers, the second leading cause of cancer death in the United States.
So how can you start eating a vegetarian diet and experience the lifestyle benefits? If giving up meat entirely is too much, why not reconsider how often you eat meat? For example, try eating only fish, or eat other meats only once a week to experience similar health benefits associated with the vegetarian lifestyle. The second tip is to eat fewer refined foods like sugar, desserts, snack foods, and fast food meals.
Instead, we should eat more whole grains and natural foods like fruits, vegetables, legumes, and nuts.
The closer you get to some kind of natural state, growing your own garden, shopping at a local farmer's market, that can be very helpful.
If you commit to following these tips, you can enjoy the benefits of lowering your risk for chronic disease and living 6 to 9 years longer.
There's your tip for the day on how you can live healthier longer.
Well, what I've got here is a cocktail of medicine. These pills here, they help you go to sleep. These pills, they help you wake up. These will help you go to the bathroom. These will make sure you don't use the bathroom too much. These over here, they're for depression. Now these over here, these are my favorite pills. They really don't do anything. The detail is in the fine print. Oh, and these pills over here, they cause side effects. But these pills, oh man, they treat those side effects. And I think one of these pills will help you get back to normal. And oh, well, the blue pill, that's a different episode. You know, the great thing about it is all these pills will keep you forever addicted and sick. You take any drugs? Like legal drugs?
I'm asthmatic, so therefore,
Asthma.
sometimes I take my albuterol inhaler.
I have to be honest with you, I love pharmaceuticals. I think it's the most amazing business model ever invented. What do you think of pharmaceuticals?
You know, there's a time and a place for those.
Time and a place.
Bless TV wishes to inform you that the information shared on this program is not intended to replace the advice of your medical practitioner or for use in the diagnosis or treatment of any illness or disease. We strongly advise that you consult with your doctor before commencing or terminating any treatment protocol. Welcome back to Med's Talk. We're here with Dr. Michelle Hamilton and Mrs. Desiree Giles Lynch, and we're speaking about alternative and conventional medicine, its impact on our lives and how we can be able to recognize the value that it brings to us. And so, Mrs. Giles, I want you to just break down in a good summary there for us, the types of medicine that exist. Because some of us are watching and we might not even understand as well as others may, the types of medicine.
Yes, thank you for that. So you mentioned earlier about conventional medicine, and for the viewers, that involves all the medicine that is traditionally used, right, in terms of in the hospitals, in terms of the pharmacy, what is dispensed at the pharmacy, etc., right? But then you also have integrative medicine, right? I'm skipping a few, but I wanted to highlight the fact that you have integrative medicine that includes both, right? The conventional as well as the complementary, which would involve naturopathic medicine, etc. So it is important to know that it needs not be such a great divide. I think the best way to go about or wellness and or health is actually to incorporate both. And I think Dr. Hamilton does a very good job of that.
So, Dr. Hamilton, naturopathic medicine, bring us into the world. What does this involve?
So we have to go way, 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 way back. And we used to pretty much refer to it as traditional medicine. It's what we would have been taught in terms of, ancestors talking about using herbs and remedies. It would have been dated back that far. However, as science has evolved and we are able now to create programs, we have now learned that you can actually study to become a physician where you actually know how to use these herbs in a more clinical setting or with more relevance to help persons and many different diseases. So I think it's around sometime more than 20, 30 years ago, quite a long time ago, much longer than that. we had changes in our medical system with the use of the Flex Now report that was done. It pretty much now had all the schools that were pretty much teaching persons about herbal remedies, getting them at a level in terms of on par with the medical system of how to actually practice medicine using herbs. And the term was coined naturopathic medicine. So we pretty much use the same system, but the difference is we combine now the medical knowledge of herbs, using it clinically to treat patients. And pretty much that is how we have that combination of both medicines and now the term naturopathic medicine.
Ah, interesting. Yes, yes, Dr. Jazz.
So I just want to point out also for the viewers that there is a difference between a naturopathic doctor and a herbalist. Nothing is wrong with a herbalist, but a naturopathic doctor, I'm sure Dr. Hamilton would agree with me, is someone who is more trained in diagnosis and treatment. You know, it is not just a knowledge of the drug itself, or the herb itself, let me put it that way. It's not just a knowledge of the herb itself, right, that the herbalist would have, but the naturopathic doctor would be able to diagnose, treat, test, right, and all of that is important for the overall treatment of the patient, and that is extremely important. And we also like, you know, to emphasize that holistic medicine or a holistic approach is also an extremely good way to be treated or to even manage your wellness.
I don't think anybody today is going to argue with the fact that holistic approach to medicine and to our health and to taking care of ourselves is to be challenged.
Well,
but there's a point I want to raise because there are many individuals who distrust both sides. There are individuals who distrust conventional medical practices, and there are those also who distrust the usage of herbs. So let me ask you on one, and let me ask Dr. Hamilton on the other. What are the reasons, in your experience, that individuals distrust alternative medical practitioners?
Well, you know, the facts that I mentioned earlier, you know, they may feel like it doesn't have as much validity in terms of proof, right? Not enough testing has been done.
Yeah, but the ordinary man on the street no know nothing about testing.
And that's a very good point, because while in our Jamaican context, we actually use alternative medicine in terms of herbs, right, in our backyard. Alternative medicine is actually more used by the upper class because aside from what is available to the common man, right, in Jamaica you may have the Sirasi, you may have the Busy, right? Aside from that, it is actually quite expensive to partake and adequately participate in alternative medicine. So if you need chiropractic treatment, for example, that has nothing to do with herbs. I did mention that you have many different aspects. So if you want chiropractic treatment, that's extremely expensive. And most likely it is not covered by your medical insurance. So, you know, it seems we always look on one side of it, and it may seem as if it is very accessible, right? But it actually is not as accessible due to the expense.
Dr. Hamilton, the other side of the coin though, some individuals do not trust the conventional medical practitioners.
That's true, and you have to look at the history, starting with even experiments on humans in terms of even drug trials. All of that has to do with it as well. But also the fact that over the years, and if you look at the cycle of traditional medicine and conventional medicine, we have gone from different eras where persons will say, hey, this drug is not good, I'm going back to natural. And as soon as things change again, they flip back and they go to conventional medicine. So the distrust will come from one, the side effects that they've seen, research that were done that pretty much history has recorded. And as a result of that, they won't necessarily want to trust it. Plus, you have individuals who strongly believe that because they don't understand it, they shouldn't necessarily take it On the other hand, you have persons would say that, well, for alternative medicine, I don't know how it works. And this is somebody who is educated enough to be able to read and get some understanding. Say, I don't trust it because they don't understand how it works with the body. You can't necessarily study it as you would for drugs, for example. Even with somebody with clinical knowledge who is a medical doctor, they still can't explain how natural medicine actually works. You have to actually get the training as a naturopathic doctor to do that. And I just wanted to make a distinction between the herbalists as well. So every naturopathic doctor is pretty much a herbalist in terms of just one aspect of training. So pretty much each one of us, as long as you're trained as a naturopathic doctor, you can be registered as a herbalist. But somebody who goes to the training as a herbalist should never treat patients because they do not get trained in the clinical approach of how to use herbs. So they will make formulas. The formulas are, for example, they would put them in the same class as over-the-counter drugs, meaning that it is safe for you to just take them and use them because they're not at clinical strength. So they don't understand the workings of the body. They'll know the basic components of the herbs, but they should only make products that are safe to be sold over the counter. So if you're actually really ill, per se, and need medical attention and further testing, those particular products will not get to that point.
So when I'm sick and at home, and my wife say, Omar, you need to go to the doctor.
Yes.
Which doctor do I go to? It's not the herbalist, based on what you're saying, because you have the diagnosis?
Yes, so the herbalists cannot diagnose. They're not trained in treating persons. Pretty much, for example, Mrs. Lynch told you that she's not a pharmacist, but some persons will pretty much
associate her
as a pharmacist. She does research. So a herbalist will do research on the herbs and they make products that can be sold over the counter.
Very good
distinction. They do
distinction.
nothing in terms of understanding how to diagnose the different conditions, how they can evolve, to understand how these herbs now will play a role in knowing which one to actually give the person. So anything that they make should be safe for over-the-counter use.
Because in the health field, there is a distinction between those who practice on the outside than those who practice on the inside. Correct?
So
internal medicine and those who deal
specialties
with...
now.
Right. I'm speaking about the specialties. So if I am having an issue internally, it wouldn't necessarily be the herbalist. It would be your...
Okay, so I think I understand what you're trying to... So the distinction is, when you are sick, you should not be treated by a herbalist. A herbalist is not trained to treat you.
Right.
Right? But they can make, just as I said, going back to over-the-counter stuff, they can make products that are safe to use on the skin, even if it's, for example, a blend of tea. Right? They will pretty much...
To fix eczema.
No, not to fix it, not necessarily to fix it in that sense. So they make topical stuff that can be used and safe. But anything of clinical strength that would actually be effective more, because eczema comes really from within. It has a deeper root.
That's why I was saying the internal versus the external.
Right. So they'll still make stuff that can be taken internally, but it's not considered to be viable enough to treat and deal with a condition because they have no clinical knowledge. So hence, anyone can just walk in and take it out. Now, going back to the naturopathic doctor, your medicines are never on a shelf. Because it is when you come in, an assessment is done, a diagnosis is given, and then the medicine is made specifically for you. So that will never be on a shelf that you can come in and I just give you a bunch of formulas.
That is now clear. Because in the conventional medicine world, you go to the doctor and the doctor writes your prescription. And then you go and you fill that. Of course, they will do it according to the dosage that the doctor has prescribed. But you're saying with the naturopathic doctor, that doctor, when you go to the doctor diagnoses specifically for you, and then the medicine is actually a very important distinction there. And so, doctor, I want you to speak to us because many persons are on the way now to, and I heard you speak earlier, and I'm going to bring you in there a little later, Mrs. Lynch, on the idea of persons making the changes. My experience has been that many people see the value of living a natural life after there is some life-triggering event. And there are a number of those that can happen. I don't think I need to speak to those, but there are a number of them that happen. And sometimes, after that life-triggering event has passed, the individuals go back to a lifestyle practice that is not in sync with the health that they desire. Speak to our audience about the necessity, not just about waiting for life events to make a change in our dietary and health practices, but ensuring that it is a part of our daily lives.
Sure. So this all has a lot to do with behavior change. And we all desire to be healthy, but it's a choice that you make in everything that you do on a daily basis. Hence, going back to the term holistic health, right? Holistic health takes in your entire being, the physical, the social, the environmental, right? It takes in so many different tenets. So when individuals seek to become healthy only because of a major life event, but then they relapse after, it's because they have not necessarily seen per se an easy path or the benefits, so to speak, in the long term, and they're easily pretty much going back into their normal method of doing things because it's just convenient for them. So actually most persons need to learn about making lifestyle changes in their normal environment with all the stressors, and then it will be easier to follow afterwards. Outside of that,
tell us how to do it though, Doc, because I think I think what many of us are struggling with is not the knowledge or the awareness of living healthily. I think many of us are struggling with all that is happening in our lives, work life, school pressure, children pressure for those who have children, financial pressure. Everything adds up, and you go to the supermarket and you say, mercy, to live a healthy life in Jamaica appears to be very expensive. How do I, in the midst of all of my life circumstance, integrate waking up in the morning or going out in the evening to Emancipation Park to do my jogging, to do my exercises? How do I integrate eating, shelving off, eating between meals, for example, not eating late at night when Jamaicans have the concept that, before good food race, and you must go to your bed hungry, which is a reality
yes.
for many persons. How do we deal with that? How? How?
That's a loaded question.
It's a loaded question.
I am aware, but I'm hearing my listeners and my viewers, and they're saying it's easy for Dr. Hamilton to talk. It's easy for Mrs. Lynch to talk, but I know my reality.
Yeah, so it is a loaded question, but I do have an answer. Why? Because I'm personally able to do that for many different reasons. So it would have been started out with my diagnosis with a brain tumor. And I was not a Christian. Mom didn't know anything at the time, but she just decided that she was going to try to make...
What age was that?
Many, many years ago.
No, I just wanted to know if it was when you were a child.
In my early 20s.
Okay.
Many, many moons ago. So she pretty much turned to food. I mean, we were quite educated. She took me to the doctor. We did the test. We did imaging and everything. But then she started to do juicing. Now, years later, she herself got diagnosed with cancer. And as a result of just changing her diet, cancer went into remission. And then a few years after that...
That was stage 1 or stage 2 cancer?
Well, she was given 6 months to live.
Wow.
At that time. Many, many years ago. And that was for a false diagnosis. But that was what the medical world in terms of tests would have revealed, and to that extent it would have been accurate. That was not accurate. When she changed her diet, everything changed. Now, a few years later, I became a Christian.
Pause. You're going quite quickly. She changed her diet from what to what?
So she cut out most meats. She would only have clean meats, and specifically only turkey, not chicken. But turkey is a healthier choice than chicken, and fish. And everything else was vegetables.
Okay.
So pretty much that's what she did. Cancer went into remission. Okay. A few years later, I became a Christian. And a Seventh-day Adventist Christian, to be precise. While, growing in Christ and understanding God's will for my life, it became a little bit clearer to me in terms of how I should live and the things that I struggled with. So in essence, having a mom with cancer and myself with a brain tumor. And when I was able to now look at God's will for my life and why I was created, then understanding when the Bible talks about health, what it means, it's not just my physical health, my spiritual health, my social health, the 6 components of health that I always talk about. Once I'm able to make that connection, then it becomes easy for me to make the changes because I'm not living for me. I'm living because I was created for a purpose, And within that purpose, I'm a steward of my body in able to do the things that God desires for me to do. So because I've put my life in alignment with the word, the things that I come up on in terms of just the struggles, in terms of diet and cutting certain things out, I'm not doing it because, hey, it's just not good. It's because I understand from a spiritual perspective in terms of my lifestyle and who I am and what I need to do, that it is important for me to leave these things alone. I won't be able to achieve anything outside of that. So the struggles I would have when it comes on to eating certain things or why I don't eat it, and even if I smell it, it's like, yes, I can agree it smells good, but why did I stop eating it? What is the reason? So the challenge is to exercise daily, to drink enough water, all of that. It is not because, hey, I want to do it, but it's more of the purpose that I'm created and what I need to do. And if I want to allow God to fulfill his will in my life, then pretty much it's just obedience. So it's not what I want, but what he desires of me to do. So it's giving up that, that feeling for self and to choosing to do what Christ wants to do. So the bottom line is obedience. If you're obedient to Christ, it becomes easier. Much easier for you to follow.
I hear you, Doc, and I agree with your philosophy. And while listening to you, Mrs. Lynch, I hear a single mother who is struggling with 2 or 3 children, 3 jobs, having to make the determination between buying a new shoes and buying not fish, but buying some chicken back. Can't even get rice. Have to utilize sweet potato or something. And I'm saying for those individuals, for individuals who struggle on a daily basis, Doc has put in the perspective of God's will and obedience, which is critical in the discussion. But speak to that single mother out there who is going through that reality and doesn't see a way for the dollar to stretch, doesn't see a way for the lifestyle to change.
Well, I think it goes back to, and that was a very powerful testimony and story, Doc. It goes back to holistic health. It is not wellness, health and wellness does not only revolve around being a vegetarian. Listen, don't stone me. Don't stone me. I'm a proponent, right? I'm a proponent. However, I know the limitations. But you have vegetarians, for example, vegans, who are still unhealthy. Why is that? Mm-hmm. Maybe they're not they're not drinking enough water. Maybe they're not working out. Maybe they are working themselves to the bone and they're not considering the other aspects. Mm-hmm. When you do your best, God will do the rest. Amen. And there's a reason you bless your food before you eat it. Listen, you're not going to bless the pork, and you're not going to bless.
You cannot bless the pork.
Exactly.
The Lord.
God cursed it already, right? So but with what you have, the knowledge you have, and the resources you have, say, Lord, I commit this to you.
I like that.
This is what I have. And this is what I'm doing, what I can in
this circumstance,
and I know you will probably make a way that I can do better, but please bless this meal as I eat it.
So do
and
what
help
you
me
can
to do the other things that I have control about, right? I'm a single mother and I'm stressed out. Help me to know how to relax. What are the things I can do to take care of myself, right? To relax. In order that I am not so, I'm not so much at risk of heart disease.
Yes.
Right? Let me not fry everything. Show me the little ways in which I can
boil it.
The little ways in which I can make what I have available a little more healthy. Show me. And he'll show you.
And I think that aspect of the conversation is so very important, because many times, myself being a 3rd generation Seventh-day Adventist, sit in audiences and listen to health presenters. And sometimes, Dr. Hamilton, it looked like my entire life must change immediately on the spot before I even leave the building, Jason. And it to me, it can become overwhelming.
Daunting, yeah.
It can make you feel as though you're so inadequate that you'll never be able to reach the mark. And that is why on my journey, I came off meat over 20 years ago. 20 years ago. But every year I've been making some some little strife. Every year I decide I'm doing something purposefully,
That's it.
intentionally. We have not bought sugar in our house since January.
Powerful.
So
Powerful.
it's those simple little steps.
Yes.
And you know, it's at first I thought, Dr. Hamilton, I could not drink tea, especially mint. I love mint
Without
tea.
sugar.
Mint tea is just awesome for me. I could without sugar. But that may not be where you are. That may not be even where you are. And that wasn't where I was December 2021.
And if you're not there, believe it or not, God can give you that appetite to get there.
I'm telling you, 4 months of no sugar, and I can tell you it coming like I don't even remember what sugar tastes like
Yeah.
in tea. So what we want individuals to get is that in this strive towards health, in this strive towards development, it's a growth process. It is really taking little steps. If you can do a big step all at once, then fine, that's okay. But grow and grow and grow. The interesting discussion. This is Med Talk. We're talking with Dr. Michelle Hamilton and soon to be and prophesying in the name of Jesus, Dr. Desiree Giles Lynch. And we're here today, really exciting discussion. We're going to be back with you on the opposite side of this break when we're actually going to be wrapping things up and looking at your own suggestions and comments in the chat. Continue to stay with us right here. Soon come.
Ever crave a juicy steak or tender serving of filet mignon? Well, you may be better off craving something other than red meat.
A team of researchers at Loma Linda University Health have been investigating lifestyle and health for nearly 60 years in what's known as the Adventist Health Studies. What they've found is those who eat a vegetarian diet have a lower risk for chronic diseases, which ultimately translates into longer, healthier living.
In our study, the vegetarians compared to the non-vegetarians do have a lower risk of chronic disease, a lower risk of high blood pressure, a lower risk of high cholesterol, a lower risk of diabetes, they're less obese, and a lower risk of dying from heart disease ultimately.
The researchers recently discovered that vegetarians are 22% less likely to develop colorectal cancers, the second leading cause of cancer death in the United States.
So how can you start eating a vegetarian diet and experience the lifestyle benefits? If giving up meat entirely is too much, why not reconsider how often you eat meat? For example, try eating only fish, or eat other meats only once a week to experience similar health benefits associated with the vegetarian lifestyle. The second tip is to eat fewer refined foods like sugar, desserts, snack foods, and fast food meals.
Instead, we should eat more whole grains and natural foods like fruits, vegetables, legumes, and nuts.
The closer you get to some kind of natural state, growing your own garden, shopping at a local farmer's market, that can be very helpful.
If you commit to following these tips, you can enjoy the benefits of lowering your risk for chronic disease and living 6 to 9 years longer.
There's your tip for the day on how you can live healthier, longer.
Well, what I've got here is a cocktail of medicine. These pills here, they help you go to sleep. These pills, they help you wake up. These will help you go to the bathroom. These will make sure you don't use the bathroom too much. These over here, they're for depression. Now these over here, these are my favorite pills. They really don't do anything. The detail is in the fine print. Oh, and these pills over here, they cause side effects. But these pills, oh man, they treat those side effects. And I think one of these pills will help you get back to normal. And oh, well, the blue pill, that's a different episode. You know, the great thing about it is all these pills will keep you forever addicted and sick. You take any drugs, like legal drugs?
I'm asthmatic, so therefore,
Asthma.
sometimes I take my albuterol inhaler.
I have to be honest with you, I love pharmaceuticals. I think it's the most amazing business model ever invented. What do you think of pharmaceuticals?
You know, there's a time and a place for those.
Time and a place.
Blessed TV wishes to inform you that the information shared on this program is not intended to replace the advice of your medical practitioner or for use in the diagnosis or treatment of any illness or disease. We strongly advise that you consult with your doctor before commencing or terminating any treatment protocol. Welcome back to MedStalk, a special seminar brought to you by the Blessed TV, where we are actually looking on conventional and alternative medicine and its impact on us, even especially since the pandemic. Dr. Hamilton, Dr. Lynch to be, I don't have much time left, so let's delve right into it. How do we merge both? You hinted at it earlier, but we didn't delve into it. And Dr. Hamilton, you spoke about the fact that your study would have incorporated both dimensions. For those of us who want to learn about both, get as much knowledge as we possibly can, share with us, Mrs. Lynch, share with us, Dr. Hamilton, how we can integrate this into our lives.
So, you know, there are wonderful books here, even at IADPA,
Yes,
that are
right behind you
able
too.
to, you know, teach you about juicing, teach you about medicinal herbs, right? So please invest in some of them. But aside from that, it is important to know some guidelines, you know, in order to allow you to use herbs to the best of your ability. And I know this is Dr. Hamilton's expertise, right? But I have to counsel even my students who are future pharmacists, you know, on how to counsel their patients
Right.
that would come to them,
Yes.
right? So one of the things I tell them to do is to counsel the patient on when they come and they have a particular medication that they're supposed to fill. You need to ask them, are you taking any other medications, right? Are you on any herbs? Because listen, there are drug interactions that can happen if you are not very careful. And so it is important that you disclose to your physician, disclose to your pharmacist the foods, certain foods you're eating. They may ask you in particular if you're taking felodipine, are you on grapefruit? Are you drinking, do you have a lot of citrus, right? They may ask you if you have, they may ask you a number of questions. So even if they don't, disclose. Because it's important that there be some transparency. And you know, it is all about using these herbs in the right way and being careful about dosage. Sometimes, you know, once you find out that garlic, for example, is good for high blood pressure, all of a sudden you eat 5 cloves of garlic one time. Come on. Which is one of those things with conventional medicine that most persons would appreciate a little bit more, in that it is more standardized. And so dosage is a little bit better, right? However, you have to be very careful about how you do it, how you use the herbs, in what form you use the herbs, which is the problem we have with marijuana. Marijuana has always had medicinal benefits. But the problem is that persons smoke it. But what other ways in which? You need to find out what other ways in which. If you're taking for glaucoma, why are you smoking it?
Well, I hear you,
Right?
Mrs. Lynch. I hear you.
So you have to be very, very careful about that.
Very powerful points there, Dr. Hamilton. Your take on it. How can we get this right?
So simply put, if you already have a diagnosis and you're on medication, just schedule an appointment with a naturopathic doctor. There are 3 of us in the island. Unfortunately,
Only 3 of you?
Only 3 of us who have studied and are able to diagnose and treat. So, but we are available online. We have naturopathic doctors all over the world. We can do telemedicine. So that's the first thing that the person needs to do, is just schedule an appointment to see a naturopathic doctor to get an assessment done to see, is there something else I can do from alternative medicine, the field of alternative medicine, that can actually help my condition. And you'll get a quick review, because even supplements that persons are taking with medication, there's contraindications. So there's a whole lot of benefits of just getting what we call a second opinion. Just schedule an appointment to get a second opinion. That's the first place to start.
Dr. Hamilton, Mrs. Lynch, really, I really have to plug this one in, because there are many individuals who go to doctors and they come back. Sometimes when you see individuals with the bags of medicine, just the sight gets you depressed. Is there a way we can, in the integration, is there a way specifically? Because some individuals believe, Mrs. Lynch, that the pharmaceutical industry just exists to make money. That is a very good point out there. It is just about the money making. And so every time you go to the doctor, they add on a new drugs, they add on a new drug, and you're on the drugs and you're on the drugs, and it changes your. Is there a way that we can get to the point where we balance the equation?
Is there a short answer for that? I would say that you have to do your homework. You have to ensure that you are very conscious about other things that you can do. The fact is okay, let me touch on the point that you mentioned about the pharmaceutical industry only being there for money. I would not say it is only there for money, but money is a part of it, right? However, we cannot negate the good that has been done. I heard somebody say the other day that science never do nothing good yet. Science is just pure bad. Science on a whole and medicine on a whole.
Some persons burn out science as Christians.
And that is utterly ridiculous. And I also have to point out the fact that medical doctors are not the enemy.
That's right.
You have to find the right one, as well as holistic medicine, as or integrative medicine and conventional medicine. They are not separate and apart, They just have to you just have to find the doctor that is able to, including a naturopathic doctor, who is able to integrate the two.
Including Dr. Hamilton. Dr.
That's
Hamilton,
right.
your take on it?
So, root cause, 2 words, root cause.
Yes.
And that is the main difference with naturopathic medicine versus conventional medicine in terms of doctors, how we practice. So we see the symptoms, but we look for root cause. Conventional medicine sees symptoms, hence you get medication for each symptom. We do not treat symptoms directly. We find the root cause, and in finding the root cause and treating the root cause, it addresses the symptoms. So that's where both medicines differ, and that's when now we are able now to determine all of these medications that they're on, we actually get them to eliminate some of them, because once you identify the root cause, you pretty much will get the person's life back in balance, where some of these medications can be removed from the list.
And there you have it, Dr. Michelle Hamilton sending us off with those important cues, indeed, root causes, moving beyond just the symptoms. And that's as Mrs. Giles has indicated, we must ensure we see our health not just from a narrow perspective, but holistically. That's part of the message that was given to this church through the writings of Ellen G. White in this book, Ministry of Healing, one of the most powerful books there is, right here in the IALPA bookstore. You can be able to get your copy. I want to say thanks to each of you for joining with us here on Blessed Television for another in its series of seminars, forum. We are intent on bringing good content to you, and we want to thank you for joining us. Share the link with other individuals and look out for our upcoming series. On behalf of each of our production team, or producers, or cameramen, I am Omar Oliphant signing out, wishing you a good day. Walk good.